It started like any other ordinary day. But for Samantha Reed, this was the day her life would change forever. The high-end department store in downtown Los Angeles was buzzing with the usual mid-morning crowd, shoppers lost in the aisles, fashion enthusiasts browsing the latest collections, and a handful of tourists wandering aimlessly through the polished marble floors. Samantha, a 30-something-year-old woman dressed in a sleek navy blue jacket and expensive jeans, stood in the cosmetics aisle. She appeared to be a regular shopper, serene, absorbed in selecting perfumes, but the truth was much darker than anyone could have imagined. This wasn't just a shopping trip. Samantha had been here before. For weeks she'd blended into the background, observing and analyzing the customers and the staff. Her every move was calculated. Every word exchanged with the sales clerks, every product touched, was part of a meticulously planned scheme. It wasn't the items she was after, it was the secrets. A moment of suspicion as Samantha picked up a perfume bottle. An alarm bell went off in her mind. A man at the far end of the store, a well-dressed executive, was talking to one of the employees in a way that seemed off, too familiar, too comfortable. She had seen him before. His face was etched in her memory from a case she'd been following for weeks now. The man was none other than Charles Bishop, a notorious figure in the underworld of Los Angeles, a man with ties to money laundering, organized crime, and a string of shady dealings that had plagued the city for years. To the public eye, he was just another wealthy businessman. But Samantha knew better. Her heart raced as she tried to focus on her task. She couldn't let herself get distracted. She had one job here today, and it involved far more than shopping. The phone call. Her phone buzzed quietly in her pocket, breaking her concentration. She glanced at the screen. The name on the caller ID sent a chill down her spine. Bishop's office flashed on the screen without thinking. She slid the phone into her hand, taking a deep breath before answering. "Samantha, we know you're in the store," the voice on the other end said, cold and calculated. "The buyer is coming, be ready." The buyer, a name she only knew through encrypted messages and backalley whispers. This wasn't just about taking down a criminal. This was a deal that could ruin lives and launch her into the shadowy depths of the city's most dangerous game. The dark secret. Samantha had always been good at hiding in plain sight, blending into her environment, masking her true intentions. But her involvement in the underground world had never been about wealth or fame. It was about power, control, and the twisted web of secrets that could be used as leverage against anyone. But now, as the seconds ticked away, she could feel the walls closing in. Someone had figured her out. Someone had been watching her. A movement at the corner of her eye caught her attention. A shadow loomed, growing closer, a figure in black, unmistakable in his intent. Before she could react, she was cornered. "You're not going anywhere," a voice snarled from behind her. The moment of truth, Samantha froze. There was no way out. The buyer was about to arrive, and she couldn't afford to be caught now. In that instant, her mind raced through 1,000 calculations. She had to act. She couldn't be exposed. In the blink of an eye, she grabbed a nearby bottle of perfume and smashed it against the counter. The glass shattered, sending a flash of light through the aisle. The man in black flinched, distracted for just a moment, for Samantha to make her move. The question that lingered in the air, was this just a coincidence? Or had someone finally uncovered her dark truth? Chapter 1. The dark web of deceit. Samantha Reed wasn't just a shopper. She was a shadow, a ghost that moved through the sleek aisles of Los Angeles' wealthiest districts, blending in with the other high-profile figures who walked the streets, without a second thought. But behind that mask of normalcy was a woman who had a mission, one that would unravel the most dangerous and corrupt players in the city. Her story began years ago, before she ever stepped foot in this department store. Raised in a modest neighborhood on the outskirts of Los Angeles, Samantha's upbringing was far from glamorous. Her mother worked as a nurse. Her father, a small-time lawyer, struggled to keep their family afloat. Samantha learned early on that the world wasn't kind to the weak or the vulnerable. People with power played by a different set of rules, and those who didn't learn how to play the game quickly became victims. When Samantha was 19, she had already begun working in the world of corporate espionage. Her initial job was simple: gather information on executives and their shady dealings. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid well. Over the years, she had worked her way up, eventually landing a position with the Collector's Circle, a secret organization that traded in the world's darkest secrets. At first, it had seemed like a dream job. She was given access to the highest echelons of power, rubbing elbows with billionaires, politicians, and criminals alike. She watched as men like Charles Bishop, the very same man she had seen earlier in the store, bent the law to their will, making billions off the backs of the most vulnerable. And all the while, she had stayed in the shadows, feeding information to her bosses, living a life built on lies and deception. Chapter 2. A dangerous game. Charles Bishop was more than just a businessman. On the surface, he was known for his luxury, real estate empire, and his charitable donations to high-profile causes. In reality, he was the head of a vast underground network that dealt in money laundering, illegal weapons, and human trafficking. His public image was flawless, but beneath the surface, he controlled one of the most dangerous organizations in the United States for months. Samantha had been gathering information on Bishop. She had hacked into his email accounts, listened in on his encrypted phone calls, and even planted listening devices in his offices. She had become so good at it that she could anticipate his every move. But her mission had taken a darker turn when she uncovered something unexpected. Bishop was involved in a covert operation that threatened to bring down the entire country. The operation, codenamed Liberty's Fall, involved bribing key figures in the government, law enforcement, and military to manipulate elections, suppress evidence, and create chaos. Samantha knew that the consequences of exposing this would be catastrophic not just for Bishop, but for the entire world. She had a choice: do nothing and stay safe, or take the risk and expose the corruption, no matter the cost. Chapter 3. The deal gone wrong. That was when the buyer entered the scene. Samantha's mission had shifted from surveillance to something far more dangerous. The buyer was a shadowy figure, a man who went by the name Kane. Little was known about him, except that he had enough power and resources to outbid anyone else in the underground world. His interest in Bishop's operation was not just financial, it was personal. Samantha was tasked with meeting Kane to deliver the stolen documents from Bishop's files. But as she had learned, in this world, nothing ever went according to plan. The moment she stepped into that department store and saw Bishop talking to his associate, she knew something was wrong. It wasn't supposed to happen here. It wasn't supposed to happen this fast. Chapter 4. The chase. After the confrontation with the man in black, Samantha's heart pounded in her chest. She knew she had no time to waste. The entire store was now on high alert, and the risk of being exposed had never been greater. She had to find a way to escape, but she couldn't leave without the one thing she came for: the buyer's location. Just as she turned to make her way toward the emergency exit, her phone buzzed again. The message was from Kane. "The deal's off. We've been compromised. Get out now." Panic set in. Was it too late? Had Bishop already caught wind of her betrayal? Could she trust Kane? No time to think. She darted through the aisles, her pulse racing as she scanned the faces of the shoppers around her. There were too many people, too many eyes. Her cover was blown, and she could already feel the weight of the city's criminal underworld closing in on her. The exit was only a few yards away when a familiar voice stopped her cold. "You'd think you can just run." Bishop's voice echoed through the store. He was standing at the entrance, flanked by two of his men. They were ready for her. Chapter 5. The hidden deal. Samantha took a deep breath and slowly turned around to face him. There was no way out now. Charles Bishop was a man who never forgave betrayal, and she knew she had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. But as she stood there, her mind raced through 100 different escape routes, and one thought consumed her: she had to play him at his own game. The conversation that followed was one of calculated deception. She pretended to be cornered, vulnerable, and ready to comply with whatever Bishop demanded. But in reality, Samantha had already anticipated this moment. She knew that if she didn't act fast, she would be dead within the next few hours. As she walked closer to him, she discreetly pressed a small button on her earpiece. It was a signal to Kane. The moment Bishop took a step toward her, everything happened in a blur. The lights in the store flickered out, gunshots rang through the air, followed by the chaotic sounds of people screaming and running for cover. It wasn't just a deal gone wrong. It was a set dash up. Samantha had turned the tables, but in doing so, she had now made herself the most wanted person in Los Angeles. Chapter 6. The betrayal. What Samantha didn't know was that Kane had been playing her all along. The moment he received her message, he had already betrayed her, tipping off Bishop about her true intentions. The compromise was a lie. Kane had used her to infiltrate Bishop's operation, and now that she was exposed, he was ready to sell her out to the highest bidder. Samantha's world was crumbling. The deal she had set in motion had spiraled out of control, and the price for her betrayal was higher than she could have ever imagined. As she sat in the back of a black SUV, cuffed and surrounded by two of Bishop's men, she realized something terrifying. She was now nothing more than a pawn in a game of global corruption. Chapter 7. The escape. Samantha's heart pounded in her chest as the black SUV sped through the streets of Los Angeles. The dim interior, lit only by the passing streetlights, felt suffocating. She could hear the muffled voices of the two men who flanked her, their whispers cutting through the tension. Their words were meaningless to her now. She wasn't listening to them. Her mind raced, replaying the events in the store, wondering how she had ended up here, betrayed by Kane, trapped by Bishop's men, and on the verge of being exposed. But she had been here before. She knew how to play the game. The SUV made a sharp turn, taking them off the main road and into a dark industrial district. A series of warehouses lined the street, their windows boarded up, creating a cold, ominous atmosphere. The vehicle came to a halt in front of a large, nondescript building. One of the men stepped out, opening the door for Samantha. She could feel the cold metal of the handcuffs biting into her wrists, but she didn't care. It wasn't over yet. Chapter 8. The final confrontation. Inside the warehouse, Charles Bishop was waiting. He was sitting behind a large metal desk, his expensive suit and polished demeanor a stark contrast to the grime surrounding him. His steely eyes locked onto hers as she was pushed into the room. I hope you understand now, Samantha, Bishop said, his voice smooth and calm. You thought you could play with the big players, but you've made the ultimate mistake. You crossed a line you can never uncross. Samantha stood still, her gaze unwavering. She wasn't afraid. Fear was something she had long ago discarded. She knew what was coming, but she also knew this wasn't the end for her. You betrayed everyone, Samantha. You thought you were smarter than me, Bishop continued. But you're just a pawn in a much larger game. And now, it's time to pay the price. Chapter 9. The Unseen Hand. As Bishop spoke, Samantha's mind was working at lightning speed. The warehouse had too many exits for it to be a simple trap. She was certain Kane's betrayal was part of a bigger play. She had been set up, but that didn't mean the game was over in a flash. She shifted her weight, knocking over the metal chair that was positioned in front of the desk. As the chair crashed to the floor, it gave her the precious seconds she needed. The men standing guard took a step back in surprise, and in that moment, Samantha did what she had always done best. She lied. She manipulated, and she played her cards close to the chest. You think you're the only one with power here, Bishop, she sneered. You think you control everything? You don't know the half of it. Bishop's calm demeanor faltered just slightly. He wasn't used to people talking back to him. Samantha knew this was her chance. She quickly lunged, grabbing a nearby pen from the desk, and jabbed it into the wrist of one of the men holding her. He yelped in pain and stumbled backward, disorienting the others long enough for her to break free. Chapter 10. The truth comes crashing down. The warehouse erupted into chaos. Gunshots rang out, echoing through the empty space. As Samantha raced toward the door, she could hear the men yelling behind her, but she didn't stop. Her heart was racing, but the adrenaline coursing through her veins made her focus clearer than ever. Samantha's escape was a blur of movement. She darted past the rows of empty crates, finding herself outside in the cold night air. She didn't have much time. The men would be on her in minutes, but she had one final card to play on her hand. She gripped the small device she had been carrying throughout the entire ordeal. The encrypted USB drive that contained the truth. The real reason Bishop and Kane had been operating in the shadows. The evidence that could bring the entire network of criminals crashing down. She had to get it to the authorities, but she couldn't do it alone. Chapter 11. The unexpected alliance. Just as she reached the street, a car screeched to a halt in front of her. The window rolled down, revealing a familiar face. It was Detective Jason Hill, the one person who had been quietly investigating the string of disappearances that had been linked to Bishop's operation. Samantha had crossed paths with him before, but never in the open like this. Get in, Hill said urgently. We don't have much time. Without hesitation, Samantha climbed into the car, the weight of the USB drive heavy in her hand. Hill slammed the gas pedal, and the car sped away into the night. Chapter 12. The price of truth. As they sped down the empty streets, Samantha realized that the truth had a price. This wasn't just about exposing Bishop or Kane, it was about exposing the entire network. If the files on that USB drive were made public, it would bring down some of the most powerful figures in the country. But as the city lights blurred in the background, Samantha knew that her life would never be the same. She had already made her choice. There was no going back now. Final words. The dark truth unveiled. Samantha's escape marked the beginning of a new chapter, but it also opened the door to a world of even greater danger. The authorities had already begun the investigation into Bishop's empire, but the question remained, who would come out on top in the end? Bishop's reach was vast. Kane's betrayal was a reminder that even the most trusted allies could be enemies, but in the shadows, there were other people who were also watching, waiting for their moment to strike. But for now, the world would never be the same. The truth had come to light, and Samantha Reed, the seemingly innocent shopper, had become a symbol of the price people were willing to pay to expose the evil hidden in plain sight. If you've been shocked by what you've just read, make sure you hit that like button, comment below, and subscribe to America's Hidden Crimes for more dark stories from the heart of America. You won't want to miss the next chapter. The truth is out there, and we'll continue bringing it to light one story at a time.